Welcome to the Coach to Coach podcast. Today we sit down with Connor Joe Lewis, the head coach of the Minnesota Vixen football team of the Women's Football Alliance. Cojo is an amazing human being who is hungry to gain more information and experience in order to put that right back into her team to see them perform on the field. She's a tough competitor on the Aussie Rules football field, including winning a national championship in 2024. We also get to learn a little bit about Cojo's time with the Baltimore Ravens and what she's taken away from that, and how having a supportive partner who's also a competitor and coach in the house is key to her success as both an athlete and a coach. And if you like the show, please like and subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. This is the Coach to Coach podcast. How did you come about becoming the head coach of the Vixen? Walk me through what that was like and, what it felt like to get selected into that role.
I feel like this could be a long story or a short story. I'll put it maybe somewhere in the middle. But I will say, I've been playing football or around football since I was a kid, and for no apparent reason. My dad wasn't into sports per se. He grew up on a dairy farm. My mom liked sports, but wasn't also particularly into sports. My older brother was athletic, but not into organized sports. It just made no sense. But even since I was a little kid, I was 4 or 5, I've always loved football. I was a diehard Vikings fan. I would play during recess with the boys. But for the first few years, they didn't really let me play. I mean, I would be on the field, but they weren't really including me, especially in offense. So I'd have to go out there every day and try to get an interception on defense, do something on defense to prove I can catch the ball, throw me the ball on offense. And eventually by the time 4th, 5th grade came around, they would throw me the ball and I was a part of the group. And so when tackle came to be an option, they're like, "Are you going to play tackle?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure." My parents were a little, maybe not, but I played tackle 6th, 8th, and 9th grade. Like I said, always being around football. 7th grade, I played volleyball, which was because my parents said I needed to try it. And then they realized that was a mistake, that I just love football so much. And then after that, I was either doing stats or playing flag football, whatever it may be. So always around football, always loved football. I had to play basketball in college. I got to play basketball in college, but football wasn't an option. Now they're starting to be flag football, which is an awesome opportunity for the next generation. But so for me, I'm always around football. I played a team sport in college. And then after college, I was like, I need to do something. I tried triathlons. I realized I can do triathlons when I'm 50. I can't do cutting sports when I'm 50, probably. Although I do know some 50-year-olds that are playing cutting sports. So, we'll see. But I decided hey, let's go try out for the Minnesota Vixen. So I played for 3 years. I was a linebacker, sometimes quarterback, filling out other positions as needed. Having the knowledge base I had as a kid that allowed me to fill in and easily play other positions. Not many players, we're getting more and more players now, but not many players had the experience of playing as in their youth as I did. But then I tore my ACL for the 3rd time in 2019. And I decided that the turf and me are no longer friends, and looked into transitioning into being a coach. So that year, our head coach, Coach McCauley, he was the head coach of the Vixen for 5 years, tremendous head coach. I asked him, I was like, "Hey, could I join your staff?" And I remember we met in the cafeteria of Northwestern, and I had written out the whole plan of the season. I was going to coach wide receivers if he would allow me to. I wrote out the whole plan, what I want to do, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. These are the drills I want to be doing. This is where I think we could be. This is where we are. And had it all written out. And he said, "That's way more than I would have expected of somebody to take this volunteer coaching position. So it's yours." So I coached wide receivers and tight ends for 3 seasons. After the 3rd season, I think in 2022, I was invited to the NFL Women's Career Forum. I still don't know how I got an invite, but it's to this day, it's one of the best experiences. We were able to talk to NFL general managers, NFL head coaches. I am a data scientist in my day job, and I do sports analytics. So I was also talking to teams analytics members during that time. And from that, I had 7 or 8 different teams reach out with various opportunities, whether it was going to be an internship or a fellowship. The Baltimore Ravens, and we could maybe dig more into this, but I know it's a long-winded answer to your question, but the Baltimore Ravens reached out with an opportunity to do a 3-week diversity fellowship during training camp with them in 2022. And that's like the perfect setup. I was part analytics coach, part tight ends coach, really just learning. Like title was, diversity fellowship coach, but I was there to just be a sponge and learn as much as possible. So I got to go to the training camp for 3 weeks and sit in the room with Coach Harbaugh, talking about the plans for the season, discussing the players, the offensive meetings, the tight end meetings where they're going over film of the details, and just take notes as fast as I could. And I learned a lot in that time of what kind of coach I would want to be. Honestly, just listening to like Coach Harbaugh talk, I'm like, he doesn't have to raise his voice. Like, everyone just respects him. And if he is going to get on you, like, it, and you can tell that he still cares about you, but he just needs you to be better, or give him, he has these high expectations for his players. Then after that, I came back, coached the Vixen for 1 more season. Coach McCauley decided to retire from coaching the Vixen. After, I said, 5 great seasons, and our offensive coordinator also stepped down. So then I threw my name in the hat. I said, "What? I think I could do this." Been around the team a while. I feel like I have a good enough, honestly, with coaching, sometimes it's a good enough grasp on things. And also sometimes it's time to put your money where your mouth is and show that you can do what you've been wanting to do, or say that it could be done differently. And our owners, Laura and James, picked me to be the next head coach and offensive coordinator. Honestly, being offensive coordinator was more terrifying than being the head coach. And then we also that year gained a new defensive coordinator, Coach Mang, and a new special teams coordinator, and then 6 other new coaches. So it was like almost entirely new coaching staff my first year, which was last year. And then this year, we're in our 2nd year. Most of the same coaching staff is back. And then we added a few more coaches. So we have, I believe, a staff of 15 coaches this year.
You have 15 coaches?
Yes.
Like you plus 15 or you plus 14?
Me, let's say me plus 14. I also have a coach that's deployed right now, and he's helping with logistics, but hopefully when he comes back, he'll be joining the staff. So that'll be 15. Plus 2. Yeah.
That's an embarrassment of riches. I mean, I know high school football teams that don't have that many coaches. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's almost entirely volunteer positions. There's a small stipend for travel, but it's an addictive environment to be around. Like, the first practice you come to, you can just feel the energy. A lot of the players that join our team will say, like, we've never been a part of a team that every player wants everyone else to improve and be better. It's none of it's like, this is my role, I'm not going to help that person. No, it's like, I want to keep getting better, but I want everyone else to be better, because that makes our team better. And that's a really fun environment to be around. And also, our players are constantly wanting to learn and improve, which coaches love. You want athletes who want to listen, And they'll challenge us, like, for sure. Adult learners challenge people. They ask the questions. They want to know, how do you do this? Why am I doing this? Show me the reason that we should be doing this at all. Why not do it this way? Like, they'll have, their own take. So that can be challenging. I love that because it allows me to think about it in different ways and be able to come back and voice. And I learn more coming back and giving them, information or a different type of drill, or show some clips to show why we're doing it this way, whatever it might be, to back up what we're saying.
Okay.
All right. I'll pass.
Seriously. So this is your story, your podcast. No one's here to listen to me. It's you. And there is so much to unpack there and dive into. Like, I really appreciate you going into that depth, right? You could tell that you're a type of person who loves information, loves sharing it, loves gathering it, loves exploring it, being challenged to find more information. You're doing sports analytics or another type of analytics?
I'm doing sports analytics. Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
I definitely can.
Okay. Yeah. Let's go. Go.
So for many years, I was like wanting to either work for a team or work in sports analytics. So I kept taking jobs that would hopefully get me closer to that. And the reason I'm in sports is analytics is because of the Vixen, because people would look at my LinkedIn and be like, oh, data science. Oh, coaches football. We got to get this person in for an interview. Like, that's how it started. So I now work for a company called Sumer Sports, and we do a lot with NFL and college tracking data to build models to help scout players, and work with NFL and college teams, and are trying to continue to expand our reach. We have 300 plus years worth of NFL scouts and former scouts and all of their knowledge. And we do, our scouts, definitely not me, do the actual grading of players. And then we also have the analytics side that says, the tracking data says that this player is in the top 5 percentile of rushing elusiveness, or their speed, or passing accuracy, or name a trait of a football player, and we're trying to remake it in the analytics space. I've also worked on products that help find comparable NFL players for a trade, or for whatever it may be. So I'm very fortunate enough to work in not even sports analytics, but football analytics, and data science, and then also do football for football is like my full-time. I have my data science job, that's football. And then as soon as the work computer closes and the coaching computer opens, like that's pretty much, then football again. And it's nice to blend the two. And it's also awesome. I have coworkers that understand football. Like last year we were going to be facing a 3-3 defense, so 3 D line players and 3 linebackers. And that's not something we typically face. And I had a coworker that's like, oh, this is so common in South Louisiana. These are the best run plays to run against that. If you can, get a trap on the D tackle. And I'm like, this is so helpful. It's so nice to have coworkers that, can talk ball with me, and I can learn from them, and they can learn from us. So, or learn from me. So it's fun to work in football and football.
I can relate to that on many levels. I routinely say I coach rugby to remember how much I love rugby, because I'm working in the sport as well. So, I'm right there with you. I want to circle back to your coaching story, your coaching journey. And obviously all of this goes into you as a coach, you as a person, you as a human, your love of the game, your love of the craft of coaching. Clearly we could see that. So now, obviously technology's becoming a huge thing in sport. Those of us that work, analytics is massive, models, right? Projecting players, speed, rushing, or what did you say? Something elusiveness? Rushing elusiveness, right? Like, you have the football scout coach observational skills, and you're marrying that with data analytics and models and, the projections that go into that world, how are the coaches that are going and working with these tools finding them? Like, is there any disbelief? I'm sure there's probably a wide spectrum of people saying, I'm really into this Moneyball thing. And there's coaches being like, this is total malarkey witchcraft. Like, how are you finding it? How are your coworkers finding it? What's that like from your perspective?
Yeah, I'll have to say I'm not on the sales side, so I'm not in the meetings with the coaches and the general managers. But I will say from my time with the Ravens, who are a pretty forward analytical team, but there are people there that had been with other teams or know of other teams, and they're always trying to balance the subjective with the objective.
Mm-hmm.
And going with your gut per se in analytical situations. There's one thing using it to help find the best players, and there's another using it to help make the best decisions in a game. And some are very like they want to go with analytical decision. Like but it's hard to live and die by that. It's easier to live and die by your gut because at least you go down doing what you felt to be right. So I really think it depends on the coach. I'd say there's 3 types of coaches or general managers. You have the ones that, like, no matter what you do, you can't convince them that this is the better option. They exist. That's fine. That's the way you choose to do it. That's okay. There's the ones that, like, could be convinced, but you really have to show them the evidence. You really show the models are working, and be able to explain it in such a way that they can grasp it. That's huge. Being able to talk the same language as the team leaders. Mm-hmm. Then there's a third that are like, maybe they even came from analytical backgrounds, who knows, but this is it. Like, this is so helpful, but they're going to ask you the tough questions because they know how they actually operate and work. But they're in all in the NFL, there's teams in all those categories. They exist. But I think now most want to at least have the analytical piece as an option. Maybe not rely on it, but like have it there to maybe help inform them to the decision making.
I hear you saying using it as a complementary tool to observational skills, film analysis, and all the other things that we've been utilizing in sport for a while.
Right. Yeah.
Man, that's cool. That is so cool. When you became the receivers coach at the Vixen, was that your first coaching role?
Yes.
Okay. So you sit down with Coach McCauley.
Mm-hmm.
You sit down with them. You put this plan out. They're impressed, and they're like, "Cojo, you got this." What was that next feeling like? Was it relief? Were you like, "Oh shit, I really have to do this"? You did talk about putting your money where your mouth was when you became head coach, but like that first coaching role for a lot of us is unexpected. There could be a big step up. What was it like for you when you first took the field and put the whistle in hand?
It was tough, but maybe not really for any of the reasons you just suggested. For me, it was I'd been an athlete my whole life, and me, at least for football, it was taken away from me, debatably too early with 3 ACLs. So I was grateful to still be a part of the team. But that first year for transitioning from being a player to a coach, especially within the same team, is extremely mentally and emotionally taxing. Because you could be out there. You could be out there doing the things. You could be out there helping the team in a different way when it comes to actual performance on game days. You don't quite have the same. You create your coaching relationship with players, but it's not the same, especially for football or contact sport, football, rugby, Australian rules football. It is different taking the field with your teammates than being on being a coach on the sideline. Because especially football, you got to have each other's backs hardcore, and you really fight. You get all the bruises together, probably rugby in that sense too. It's a different feeling. So to go from having that teammate mindset to having a coach mindset, I did some things that first year to really try to help separate my mind and also help the players, because a lot of them I was playing alongside them the year prior. It was 2020, mind you. So we practiced for 3 months, and then the season was canceled. But for those first 3 months, I always wore like my work clothes, my nice work clothes, to be different looking than the players. I look like I could be a player. I still kind of always try to wear something that the players wouldn't be wearing, like dress slacks or a polo or something. I always am trying to distinguish a little bit because I look like I could be a player out there. But that first year, it was just as much for my own mindset as it was for me presenting to the team. So I'd keep that distinction. And going into those first few practices, I hadn't been a coach, but I had been a leader. I was a captain the previous season. Even before that, having been around football so much, coaches would talk to me about different situations. Always felt like I was a leader on the team. Of course, you're not coaching, but sometimes in adult sports, you look to the veterans to as a rookie to like help you, or mid drill, like, hey, like try this quickly. You don't want to do it too much as a player, but it does happen, and it's what makes our team very great is that we do have veterans with that knowledge. They don't step on coach's toes, but they also like give that extra bit of encouragement or help mid drill. So I was already kind of doing that. So the switch was really into like, now I can't be on the field and do the thing anymore. So how can I put my knowledge and continue to gain knowledge to put into athletes as much as possible? So I was excited. To go back to sum it up, like I was excited, nervous, and I knew it was going to be really mentally challenging the first season. Then COVID hit, so I even had another year in between. And then 2021, the same thing. I will say that games still make me the most anxious, nervous. Offense coordinator is a little bit different because I actually do have more control over the game. But when you're an assistant, you don't really have much control over. Like maybe you can do a rotation or something, but it is out of your hands. Like hopefully your coaching works. Hopefully the players will do the things that they've been doing and that they're capable of, but it's out of your hands. Like you're part of, on the sideline, you're still in it and there's parts of it there, but for the most part, you gotta let them do what they can do.
I couldn't agree more. I think Andy Ryland, who was one of my favorite tackle coaches, he would say, game time tests your training environment. Like, how well are you training? If you're training really well, they're going to be performing in the games. And, that feeling of like, okay, you're out there now. It's on you, and that's a tough one, especially as coaches. You're standing, we call it the technical zone or the box, right? You're standing in the box and you're just like, okay, here they go. All right. You got this. I actually envy, OCs or DCs where the play calling aspect of that, like you all get to have that. I don't have that at all. I'm literally just standing there like, make another tackle, please. Like, like brings up something interesting. So now you've transition receivers coach into head coach / OC, right? Offensive coordinator. We routinely see like sports documentaries where the quarterbacks are sitting down with their partners or friends and they're reading the playbook and, they're saying, here's this call. What is this? And it's like the coverage is here. I'm going to put the receivers here, there, whatever. How did you as a coach prepare to be an offensive coordinator?
That's a great question. Like I said earlier, being an offensive coordinator was more nerve-wracking than being a head coach. Like head coach, yeah, you have to deal with some difficult situations that pop up that aren't even always football related. Like, you have to deal with that. There's some logistical things. We have a pretty good separation of jobs within the Minnesota Vixen, but they still come up. Leading a staff of former football players, of people of all different backgrounds. The team is of all different backgrounds. Like there's a lot to consider there. But I was like, I think I can do this. Like, I'm going to learn a lot. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
But I think I can do this. And for offensive coordinator, I was like, wow, calling plays live. And everyone's going to have an opinion on what you're calling. Like I was like, I got to grow some thick skin real fast. I already have some, like, my parents prepped me for that, but I was like, I need to have some, thick skin and believe in the play calling. Leading up into the season, we had a good offense in the previous years. We had it for a while. I wanted to mostly keep the base of the offense. The biggest thing is continuity, I feel like, for our players.
Mm-hmm.
And we can actually grow on stuff. If you come in and want to switch the offense every year, you have to reteach all of your players, even your veterans, and start from square one with everybody. So for me, a big thing was continuity. I wanted to make some small tweaks, expand a few things, make some adjustments, but I wanted the base of the offense to be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So we could go quickly. We have rookies every year, and we do ramp them up, but it is a little bit of, sink or swim. We give them some floaties. We do give them some floaties, but at some point we take them away. So that piece, I kept a lot of the offense from the previous season. I made some changes. I added some read options for the quarterbacks, like all the different pass plays I have. If they're in cover 0, which means that they're person-to-person coverage, there's no one over the top, this is what we look for. If there's cover 1 person over the top, person-to-person coverage underneath, this is what we look for. If they're too high, this is what we look for. If they're cover 4, it has those options for the quarterbacks. And I went through, and that's just as helpful for me as it is for them. Because if I can't explain to someone else, or even type it up and explain to someone else, how do I expect them to know and learn? And I also have very high expectations for the athletes. Oftentimes in women's sports, especially tackle football, coaches don't think the athletes can handle more complex playbooks or cadences or defenses. So I do think there is something to keep things simple. I do think that exists, but at the same time, there are some easy complexities that we can add that players are capable of. My first year, we had risk coaches that told us exactly what we were doing on every play. You are the X receiver. It is red 5. You are running the slant. So you didn't need to know what anyone else was doing. You just were running the slant. To be fair, at that point, we were playing offense and defense some. We had less time to practice. We were in a gym. Our facilities have improved. Our time allotted has improved. So there has been some changes there. We pretty much don't have any players that play both sides. That being said, let me go back to the offensive coordinator. I went through and rewrote some of the playbook, added a more advanced cadence. After that, then we go through and week by week give it to the players. They say there's a saying that the most important relationship in all of sports is that between the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. And so for us quarterbacks, I'd put a S after that because I try to make sure that all of them know what's going on. Our QB1 last year and will begin this year she's my brain has just been put into her brain. She'll come over to the sideline and I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's run Florida. She's like, I was thinking we should run Florida, good call. And runs back out there. We're thinking the same wavelength, and that's super important.
You're probably the most prepared coach I've ever talked to.
You would know if you come to a practice. I hate not being prepared for a practice. I need to have my schedule down. I need to have the notes of what all the different coaches' drills are and what is to be expected. I mean, I can be adaptable, but I struggle at it in my personal life and in coaching. And I've had to for coaching because sometimes we'll show up and we don't have access to the field yet, or I only had 1 D-line player show up and I was expecting to have at least 6. So we have to make some changes on what we're doing, or something like that could happen in our world. Or it's snowing in Minnesota and only half the team shows up to a practice because there's 4 inches of snow and maybe we should have canceled it anyways. There is some adaptability there, but I like to have a plan. I like to have it written out. That way everyone can follow along. I mean, I have 15 coaches, 2 assistants. If there isn't a plan, I have everyone asking me what's going on? And how am I supposed to also do my coaching if I'm just managing all the other things and making those decisions?
Couldn't agree more. Love a good practice plan. I love the functions in chat groups now, communications apps where you can heart messages, WhatsApp or GroupMe. When I was at the U, I'd be like, if you're coming to practice, heart this. And then I'd have an idea of how many players would be there or not,
Yeah, right. Then Well,
it helps break down that anxiety, that uncertainty, it even if like, I bet same in your environment, Cojo, like all of your players don't know what all of the drills are, right? They don't know what this drill's called or whatever. And the same thing happened to me in rugby several times, but it was comforting for them and the assistant coaches and I to have a plan and, not get there and throw a bag of balls and cones out and be like, okay, we're just going to have, fun today, or whatever.
We wouldn't get very far if we did it that way.
No.
You know what I mean? Like we need to have structure. We have 2 hours. Like we are on it. And I have an assistant that's like, whistle, you're 1 minute over, 2 whistles. Are you're 2 minutes over. You want to move on to the next drill, coach? I'm like, yes, okay. You're right. We do need to move on, but
so do you build in like extra time because like certain things you may want to spend a little bit more time on? Do you ever do that?
I try to just have that in the plan then as much as possible, but we've started doing like full team scrimmage setup, and that can just vary in time. So I've added like 5 minute of filler time because we kept being like, for us, when the dome time ends, like we need to be off the field. And I would like to end the practice with some, like give some kudos to some players and they give it to each other. I'd love to end with that and maybe an offensive discussion and a defensive discussion. But also we want to run all 20 plays. So there's 3 minutes left and there's 2 minutes left. I'm like, okay, 1 minute left. Everyone get in here. Great practice. See you next week. And I don't love that. And so I have been adding a bit more filler time, but you ask an athlete, like, do you want to have a post-practice discussion or do you want to run 2 more plays?
2 more plays. Yeah.
Do too.
We've both coached in Minnesota. We both understand this, but for those who haven't coached in a dome, hell hath no fury like a team waiting to get on. Right. And if you're the team that goes over the next week, those people are just like, no, we'll wait to let you on. Like it's this weird dynamic of indoor sports in the winter where there's a huge respect component to that too. So that anxiety of like, okay, all right, this is it. Okay, we got to get off. Let's go. See ya. That doesn't happen here in California. Like our coach, I was coaching club last year, and Neil, it'd be like, okay, we're finishing at 9. And then it'd be like 9:15, 9:17. I'd be like, dude, everybody wants to go home, man. Let's go. let's get out of here, like, so.
You bring up a good point too, actually, not only about Minnesota dome dynamics, but one thing I stretch as a coach is I want players to respect our time, which means showing up to practice on time. It means being ready when you show up to practice. It means if you're not going to be at practice, you fill out the Google form and alert your coaches so we can plan accordingly. But a part of that is us respecting their time. So be efficient with what we're doing, have purpose with what we're doing, and begin and end on time. Like that is huge for us. Like I want to end on time. A lot of our players have families or jobs that they're going to afterwards or need to go to sleep because it's 10 p.m. and they work at 5 a.m. So that's huge for me is like I'm much as possible. I think only last year I went over noticeably on like 3 practices. It was towards the end of the year. But I didn't like that even. But we needed it. We needed the practice. Like we did need it. But at the same time, I want to like respect their time and they respect our time.
Coach, you said it best earlier when we started talking about domes. If you give a player a choice between going to the post-practice huddle or getting 2 more plays in, they're always, the great ones are going to go for 2 more plays. And you don't do it that often. So I'm sure that those 3 times you did it, your players were like, we have to get this in. Let's get this done. Yeah. Let's go for it. I love the way you structure things. We talked about how when I'm doing these with friends and guests, like it's my discovery process of people I've known and respected, and I get to learn so much more about them. Like this has honestly been amazing to hear your background and, going from athlete to coach to head coach to offensive coordinator, getting to work with the Ravens. There's an innate curiosity in you as a person to continue to gather information and keep growing. Like, have you developed some sort of formal coaching philosophy? And if you have, what would you say that is?
The shortest way I could say it is listen, learn, lead.
Okay.
Like that's the 3 words that always like I come back to when I'm asked these types of questions. That was actually something I heard at the NFL Women's Career Forum, and it just stuck with me. I've always also said it, like, to be a good leader, you need to know how to follow. So it's along the same veins. I want to listen. I want to listen to my players. I want to listen to my coaches. I want to, learn from outside sources. Even at the highest level in the NFL, like, they're still learning. And if they have stopped learning and become complacent, they're gone. They won't be there anymore. Like, everyone is learning and growing, and I strive to continue to do that. In our team, I want to listen to our players. If they're like, hey, this play isn't like quite working. I never can get this block quite right. Like, why is this the case? Could we run it like this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll think about it, and I might come back and ask them more questions. Like, if we ran it like this, what would you do with this other defender? Or, like, challenge them a little bit. And sometimes we do change how we do it, or we keep it and we maybe adjust it in a small or different way, especially in women's tackle football. And I think that's a big part of this philosophy is I want our players to become students of the game. A lot of them didn't grow up playing football or being able to understand football in that way. And I'm trying to not only teach them how to play football, but how to enjoy, watch, learn, grow, and hopefully become coaches themselves, or who knows what their next steps in life will take them. But that same philosophy of, like, listen to those around you, learn from those around you, and then lead those around you if given the opportunity.
I love it. And well spoken, Coach, for thinking through a philosophy and putting that into words. Like, it was amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sometimes I'm just sitting here and I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. I could, that is amazing. Thank you.
You're like, write notes.
Right here. It's right here. I'd be remiss, and I'm sure Lauren and them would kill me if I didn't ask, how did you get into footy? What role does that play in your journey as a coach, as a human? To be honest, you said 3 ACL surgeries. Like, are you kidding me? You were crushing us on the field. Like, there's no way you had, like, I couldn't believe that, like.
Yeah, I've never seen a challenge I didn't want to I couldn't overcome. So, and actually, while you make that comment, first, I want to say, like, not everyone knows this about me, but I also have cystic fibrosis, which is a lung disease, genetic lung disease. And a part of who I am is because of cystic fibrosis. And, like, why not be positive about things? Like, being positive, facing challenges. That was day one for me. I was fortunate enough to have parents, and my older brother also has cystic fibrosis, but parents to put us in situations to still do all the things and support us and never act like we had CF. Like, we still had to mow the lawn. We still had to, my brother especially, be out in the tractor baling hay and stuff. I was less of the farmer, but still would be out there some. But either way, like, don't let something, like, stand in your way. And what's the point of being, like, sad about it? Like, work towards it. Like, don't act like it doesn't exist, but, like, work towards whatever you want, and put in the effort and do it have fun doing it, or have this positive attitude. It can go a long way. So same thing with 3 ACLs. Like, each time they happened, the first thing I was worried about cystic fibrosis is, how am I going to stay healthy? How my lungs are going to stay healthy while I'm injured. But each time that happened, like, something positive happened after each of my ACL surgeries. Something I can, like, it's cliche. I always tell it to, if I have an athlete that tears their ACL, I always tell them, like, there's gonna be something positive come out of this. You might not know it for 5 years, but, like, I swear there will be something that comes out of this. And for me, one of those years, it was footy, actually. I just saw, like, something online once. My partner was out of town. I was bored on a Saturday, and I was like, well, let me just go check this out. I was not going to play. I just like learning new sports. So I showed up to this Australian rules football practice, and turns out I'm pretty good at the skills of it. You have to kick a You can either kick, for those who don't know Aussie rules, like you can either kick a ball kind of like a punt, like a drive punt from football, or you can like hit it like a volleyball bump kind of. But it's like this big game of hot potato, and it just combined like every sport I'd ever played into one, with a little bit less of the commitment of football. And it was also kind of in the off season of football. So I was still playing football at the time. I joined footy in 2018, met some great people. Like the sport is, such a unique sport. Like it's so incredibly unique. It's played on grass, which is key. That's important for me. And yeah, 2018 I played. 2019 I tore my ACL in football. I played on my torn ACL at the national championship for footy. I don't know if that was a wise decision, but we did it anyways. And then I had surgery the day after the tournament. And then I had to decide, like, do I want to stay playing or not? And I decided to keep playing footy. And that's right. Then I met you the next summer, I think, Snacks.
Yeah, 2020.
2020. We were all just practicing a ton because we couldn't play games. But footy has like taken my heart. Like I always say like football is my first love in terms of playing, and footy is my current love in terms of playing. It just allows for like a ton of creativity, and I still get to be an athlete. It is really interesting to go from football, where I am in charge of 80 people, to footy, where I am trying not to. I was a captain the last 2 years for the Freeze, but I'm trying not to to be in charge. And it's nice though. It's actually nice to like go there and be just an athlete, to go to practice and be just an athlete. And I was fortunate enough to be on the U.S. national team this last year, and be able to travel for your sport. And like for those of us having full-time jobs and also playing a sport, to go for a week and a half where you are only focusing on your sport was a great experience. I was in Toronto last year. And it also, this is maybe even more in line with your question. I recently realized like how me playing footy helps me coaching, because sometimes maybe at a footy practice, I would disagree with the drill we were going to do, or think something should be done a different way. And I'd have to check myself, because I'm like, at football practice, I am expecting, my players and coaches to like, they can disagree with me and like bring it to me for sure. But like at the same time, I'm expecting them to do what I ask of them. And we have football, we have players with all different backgrounds, situations, maybe nagging injuries or something. And I see them like sitting out a drill, and a typical coach might be really frustrated. And I'm going to go over the like, hey, what's up? Okay, this one really hurts your knee or your ankle. I'm like, okay, how about we just not do this one? How about you do this other thing? Because in footy, there's a few drills that really bother my knee. And I'm like, no. I can see the purpose of it, but I need to maybe sit this one out. So having that like competitive adult athlete in footy, and then also being the coach of competitive adult athletes in football, it causes me to like check myself sometimes, but also continue to learn and make sure that I can keep being as good of coach as I can be for, again, adult athletes. So it's very different than coaching kids, I believe.
Agreed.
Kids aren't going to ask maybe the young kids might ask like, why? But like for the most part, they're going to do what you tell them to do. Adults, not as much.
You bring up a lot of great points about being an adult athlete in learning a new sport and needing one sort of like that stress relief and the challenge of learning something new, and group of friends who the Freeze are amazing. Like if I don't know anybody who's gone there that doesn't want to go back, right? Even the rugby guys that like win a couple times are always like, are the Freeze still practicing? It's like, yeah, guys, go ahead, go out there, right? Like, but you bring up a great point, and like as coaches and as professionals in the sports world, it's so hard not to be in charge that it's really good to go to something like footy. And I experienced something very similar where like
same thing for you.
I didn't have to plan practice. I didn't know a thing about footy, right? I mean, I knew of footy. It was funny. The first thing I said when I was walking up to my first practice in 2020, I was like, why are the goals so far? Do like our practices split up that between the women and men, that the women are way down there? Like, why wouldn't we practice together? And Weaver was like, Snacks of Field's that big. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. But like it's nice to switch off. It's nice to follow and like you're saying, remind yourself, be in your athlete's shoes too, right? Like, and that's I was getting similar feelings when you were describing that. Like, the one for me is the cross where we run like fucking 70 meters that way, and then we kick back, and it's like my kicks are always terrible when we were doing those. Like, I felt so defeated, but like I was like, can we just shorten this up a little bit?
Footy is the most humbling sport.
Oh,
the ball does what it wants. It's like, and
it's slippery as hell. It's not like a football or a rugby ball with a little bit, like it is slick, like if it gets wet or sweaty at all, like you can't handle it. But
yeah,
I would agree. Footy is one of my current loves in sport. Like, it's different. Through CJ and his dad, Chris, and all of you at the Freeze, it sort of opened some other doors and windows that I get to like learn from. Jason Becker and I were, he put this like AFL footy club sort of like outline what they do over in Australia. And he was like, how does this compare to rugby? And so like we were kicking that back and forth on email, and, it's just a really, really great sport. And, having a lot of similar challenges like rugby and recruiting and getting people to try a new sport. I don't think we mentioned this, but something pretty important happened for the Freeze this year. Do you want to tell the folks, the listeners, what happened?
Yeah, 2024 national champions in Minnesota Freeze. We ended Golden Gate Maidens' 7-year streak. We'd been in the finals for the last 3 years. Close game 2 years ago, and then last year we finally came away with the ship, which we've been working really hard towards the past few seasons. We have a really solid team, and putting a lot of extra training, and I love the Freeze. We have structure, which doesn't always happen in footy. Like, we on the field, we have roles. 3 years ago, I'm a winger, and I was like sprinting all over the place at the national championship last year. I think I went into the forward line like 4 times over 4 games, because I was like, our forwards got it. I'm just going to stay back here and lock it in, as we say. Definitely go back in defense, but like we just had like really solid structure, and good coaching, good structure, good athletes. Fun time. Like, we're always trying to have a good time too.
I didn't realize it was Golden Gate. You all had played in the last 3 finals. So what you're saying is, don't wear Freeze gear when I go to rec footy with them in mid-March?
Do what you want. The women's team, like we know a lot of them too, just from national team.
Let's circle back to coaching, and I'm very mindful of time. I don't want to keep you too long, but I'm fascinated. Cojo, I'm like fascinated with you and like, what's happening around you. You recently connected me with Esther, who's just got hired by a college to be their flag football coach. I wanted to ask you a couple questions about flag football, if that's okay.
Go for it.
So, I consume sports content like a 12-year-old on TikTok, right? And it's very noticeable how many resources are getting put into flag football these days. As a tackle football coach in the women's game, are you seeing any of that translate at your level? Clearly you've shown that the environment you're in has had a few more resources, you've structured training a little bit differently, you've gotten more people together, 15 coaches, I feel like you're building a really great infrastructure to capture some other participants. Do you think flag football will help that? And are you seeing anything from that aspect?
This is a can of worms. We'll see if I can keep them there. Open it up. So a few things. One, other states have really pushed girls flag.
Yeah.
I don't know a ton, but I do know of a few players that do really well in the WFA that have come from flag. I'm sure that's also true in the WNFC. We haven't seen that quite as much in Minnesota. The Vikings are pouring money into girls flag in Minnesota, including I think there's 6 college teams this spring that they're putting some money behind. But that was like kind of later on in the year, so I think they're using a pool of players that already exist on the. I mean, you only need 5, but probably 10. You need about 10 players to fill the flag team 5-on-5. So we're not quite seeing the players come through yet into the Minnesota Vixen. I'm unsure of how. There's a few different things that could play out, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All the financial resources could go into flag, and women's tackle could suffer. That could happen.
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't, but that is a possibility. The way I look at that is, I'm hoping there'll be some filtration through in terms of athletes. Flag doesn't really take away your O-line, your D-line, maybe not even your running backs or your linebackers. Flag is really quick movement, good hands, players, and a quarterback, of course.
Yeah.
Like they excel well in flag. So we'll see what happens with players there. I look at it as like, at the bottom line, I see it as awesome to see girls playing football. Where we go train for freeze, actually, there's at the training house in Minnesota, there's a group of girls that come in that are on a soccer team. Before every workout that they start, they pick up a football and are throwing a football around. That didn't used to happen. I know that as a kid, that did not used to happen, because I would be going and finding boys to play with. Like, hey, can I throw a football with you? Like, that's how it used to be. So I love seeing that. And I think getting more people touching a football can only help women in football, whether it's going to be flag or whether it's going to be tackle. I'm unsure of how that's going to play out. But seeing more girls like touching a football, playing catch with a football, being a part of that environment, I think is awesome. I mean, that piece will be great. I don't know how the financials are going to work out. Oh, and the other piece is in terms of participants, like, sure, let's say even the top 10 players in Minnesota, receiver or DB, go to flag. Like, let's say that happens, but there's been 400 girls playing flag. There's still more people that have touched a football than the people that try out for our team now. Like, that's still building a better pool of athletes, whether it's going to go into flag or potentially tackle. Like, it's still existing. Like, I can't see how people touch young girls playing with footballs can't help adults, women in a similar avenue.
I think you're right. I think the exposure to the sport, the more touches of the football, getting touches in an environment that you're not getting judged in, I'm sure growing up, Cojo, being the only girl wasn't always easy, right? But like, clearly you're a badass and no one's ever going to turn, like, you're always going to get picked, right? Like, you were my first pick at Metro, I'll be honest. But like, I think what's very interesting about the flag football scenario right now is how fast it's exploding, and especially in the women's girls side of the game. And you're exactly right. the more people that are participating in that sport, it swells the pool of talent available, which then, you're picking from the top 1 to 5%. That 1 to 5% goes from a really small pool to a much wider pool pretty quickly with the more people playing. And I mean, it's very interesting to see from my perspective in the rugby world, is because that is a model that we have said, this would work if we did this, y'all. And we still haven't done it. And now I'm watching flag football do it. And I'm listening to my friend who's a football coach going, the pool's bigger. At some point I'm going to get more players because more players are touching a football.
Yeah. It's tough to me because they're so totally different sports. Like what I don't want to happen is like, oh, girls can't do contact. That's why like flag is the only option. Like I do think that those girls and women that desire contact sports like will still find their way into tackle.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be like, oh, girls can't play baseball, like they need to play softball, which was historically it. Now like women and girls have like co-op, like softball is like the thing, and it is fun to watch. Like,
yeah.
But the origin of it is annoying. Like the origin of it is unfortunate. So I do want to keep it. I don't want the rhetoric to be like girls have to play flag because they're not capable of playing tackle.
I agree with you.
I don't think that has to be. I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive.
No, 100%. And I think we're now hopefully past some eras of the past where, look, there is. Let's take your sports analytics role, for example, right? You said you were taking data analytic roles to get closer to sport because you had that idea. You knew that you could go into that route, I think flag football offers an intermediate stepping stone for female players that never thought they could play. Like, oh, football exists? Like, no one's telling them they can't. Maybe they just, their friends bring them along and they realize how fun it is. Then it's like, it's not they can't play. It's, I never knew I could play, which I think is, humans are very curious, but also when we're put in new situations, we kind of go internal and don't, at least I do. And a lot of people I hang out with do the same thing. Like everyone's always like, Snacks, you're such a great behavior when you're around new people. And I'm like, it's because I don't know anybody here and I don't want to make a fool of myself. Right. But like, had I not been pushed, had I not met CJ, I would have never went to footy. Had I not met Tim Duncan, I would have never went to rugby in 2000. Like it's just that idea of knowing this thing exists and be like, oh, that could be fun. And I see flag just sort of hitting that mark. Like my old high school has a team now, and I was interviewing their DC, and I was like, John, what happened? He's like, girls are just like, yeah, coach, we want a team. Okay, here you go. All right, let's do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's almost like science said it would work. Like you show people that this thing exists, and people will start to fill that hole or fill their need to do something or whatever you want to call it. It's incredible. Has Minnesota put it in Minnesota State High School League yet or anything?
Vikings are trying. They've put $600,000+ into high school league programs, including my partner Kaya. She's going to be coaching Bloomington flag this fall or this spring. Last year they've been piloting it in various programs. They've been doing it in middle schools, and now I think there's like 30+ high school teams, mostly in the metro area. Now the Vikings are essentially bankrolling for this first, to get off the ground, because it does usually come down to resources, and they're also doing it in a way that isn't taking away from other sports practices. You'll probably practice like once, maybe twice a week, and then Sundays are game days. So like they're allowing people to like maybe who are playing softball to also be able to play flag football, and kind of like introductory seasons. You're not going to have, they're not going to be as prepared for games as say like a basketball team is or a volleyball team because they're, practicing 5-6 days a week. But it's the introductory, like this is step one. Let's get girls out here, see what they can do. Kaya coached a middle school team last year in St. Anthony, Minnesota, and they improved a lot throughout the season. And they had a few athletes that I was like, dang, like they're like a 360 catch this one time or like 180 catch, and I was like, this is incredible, and it just needed an opportunity. And I think that's been true for a long time. Like girls can play football, and I've been fighting that fight since I was born, pretty much. And I think if it's through flag and that's getting support, then let's do it.
I agree. Can I ask a couple questions about Kaya?
Sure.
What's it like having another coach as a partner? And, there's a lot of talk in the coaching world about having a strong support network around you, right? And I think my partner coached at the U before we were together, and then we got together. So like a partner who coaches kind of understands, like, how do you and Kaya support each other sort of in your individual roles and as coaches? I mean, Kaya's also on the freeze and you want an Addy together. Like that's gotta be amazing, but like how important is that support between each other?
Yeah. It's super important. She coaches basketball at Bloomington Jefferson in Minnesota. She's the JV head coach and varsity assistant coach, and now she's also coaching flag for the second season in a row. And then we also are athletes with the freeze, so we like to keep busy. The biggest thing is allowing space for your partner to talk about their coaching if they're dealing with a difficult situation or even a positive situation. Like, tell me about the fun thing that happened at practice. And it's also awesome to like get to go and watch your partner coach. Like we can't make it to every game of each other's, but we do try to make it to at least some, and if possible, either get to know the players or get to know a bit more about the players. She's been at Bloomington for 3 years, so I can be like, oh, this player's doing really well. Like, I see your coaching paying off. Like, I even saw her do your move or something like that. That's happened this season, which was fun. But then the other piece is like at home. Okay. Like for us, it's really crazy the months of January and February because we're both coaching, and the beginning of the Vixen season is almost just as crazy as the game season. Just getting players up to speed and getting all of our installs and getting back into that pattern. So during that time, like it's the most challenging of, we might see each other for an hour a day, if that, because she's at work and then practice until 6 p.m. or 6:30, and I leave for practice at 6 and I'm home at 10:30. So that can be challenging, but it's really nice to have someone that you can talk to about those challenges, and you can support each other. Like I always try to point out positives, and I really do love watching people do things that they're good at. And like she's good at coaching, so I love being there and like watching her coach and supporting her and watching the girls improve each season. And I think the same way, like last year, she would be on footy trips for regionals, and we had games those weekends, and they were all watching on the iPad and sending me text updates that I don't have my phone on me during games. So afterwards, I just get like, oh, great call, great play, but like whatever it is on there, that was challenging. What happened to this player? What's going on? I'm like, I can't respond to these. She's like, I know, but it just feels like I'm talking to you. Aww. And I just like, that's so awesome to have someone that understands, is competitive, same competitive nature, and can support and also like keep things down on the home front. In the other portions of the season, we're not both coaching.
I feel like that's super important in the coaching realm, right? Is having that understanding. When you're at home, it's Connor, not Coach Connor, right?
Yeah.
It's Kaya, not Coach Kaya. I get told routinely here, hey, it's not Coach Snacks here, buddy. Like, shut up, take it easy. Right.
We like honesty.
Well,
We like straightforwardness. I do, at least. That's why I'm like, tell me what's up.
I was actually thinking about there were times where Katie would meet the Gophers and they'd look at her and she'd be like, yeah, I know, don't worry, guys, he really does love you, even though he's hard on you, like, don't worry. Like, so it's amazing. That's my filler word, amazing. I gotta find a new one. When you do a podcast, like, no one ever tells you this, but like, then you go and edit it so you hear yourself. And I say, I love that. Amazing. Awesome. Like,
they are. It is amazing. And you do love it. And
yeah.
I'm lying.
No, I'm not lying. It's just also like, I need to expand my vocabulary a little bit, not be a meathead rugby player, rugby coach, footy player, right?
Not at all.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah, no kidding.
Have you ever had one of those moments where like you hop in a drill and like you're against your players and they're like, yeah, okay, coach, and then you just like smoke them and you have that like, yeah, I told you I still got this. You ever had one of those?
Yeah. Well, I also have to like jump in and be quarterback every once in a while. And it's just good to remind myself, like, I don't usually do it during team time, but like during like 7-on-7 or something.
Yeah.
It's just good to remind myself like how hard the position is. Because when I'm sitting back there, I'm like, of course, 1 high, 2 high, like I'm going to throw it here. And then like to do the thing that you also thought to do the thing. But sometimes it looks really good. And I'm like, yes, and I can do it. But other times it's a good reminder of how difficult football is and how mentally taxing it is.
Coaching is very mentally taxing. I don't know if anybody ever really understands that. Like, any players that don't go into coaching at some point don't quite get how switched on we are as coaches.
Constantly.
I'm going to ask you two-parter. One, what is something you wish your players knew about you that they maybe don't currently know as a coach? And two, what is like the funnest time you've ever had as a coach?
Okay, this first question is a good one. I like it.
I wanted to go serious and a little bit of enjoyment in there too. But yeah.
Amazing. Great.
Awesome. Love it.
I love that.
I love that.
I don't know if they don't know this, but how much effort I put into like putting them in positions to succeed, and like each practice, like even each drill, like how much I care about each of them and like want them to do better. And I do say this, but like it is so deeply inside, and I don't always show it. I try to say like a pretty calm exterior, and even sometimes say like I can just kill people with my looks sometimes. Like that's more of the approach of like, just like, is that really what you want to do? You want to challenge me on this? But actually, like whenever I see someone like see it click for them or do the thing that they've been practicing, like how like my whole body like feels happiness for that person. Not even like for me, like, hey, good job, coach. Zero of that. Like just 100% happiness for that person and joy for that person. And then also like if someone is struggling, or and the flip side, someone is struggling or maybe has an injury, like the amount of empathy I have and like sadness I have for that person, like it is like very strong. And I've had to like try to figure out how to like get over that, not get over it, but like deal with it outside of practice. 'Cause it is extremely strong. But just to note, that's also why I knew I would want to be a coach, because as a player, I was a pass first point guard. A lot of teams I played on for football, whether it's the Vixen or like a flag football team, I always was more excited when someone else did something well and that they had been working on. And like that is something that always made me feel great. Like I was like, yeah, I know I can do this. Like of course I want to do well, and I feel great when I do something good, but when someone else does something, like at nationals and the national championship, someone that had pretty much just joined the team scored a goal, and then my other friend who had been playing on the Freeze for 3 years scored 2 goals at nationals, and I think she maybe has like a goal, and she's in the forward line, and like kicked in the goal, and one was actually, maybe you could have debated, taken away from me. Like it had the distance and someone touched it and then she kicked it in, but I was just so excited that she scored the goal. Like that was more, it's more happy for her than I would be for me, and that's happens in my coaching. Long-winded answer to say like the deep joy I have for my athletes and like care I have for my athletes, which maybe doesn't always get shown, but it's ingrained in me. Most fun moment. Oh, there were so many in my first season.
All right. Instead of fun, because you mentioned your first season, and I'm sure enjoyment and like the fulfilling part of this is in there. Was there a moment in your first season where you were like, yes, like, hell yes, this is working?
Yeah. Okay. 2 come to mind. One is a strange answer because we actually lost the game. But we set the scene. First game, it's against our rival. It's my first game calling plays. I'm like, okay, I've been practicing in practice. Like I've been practicing as a coach how to like call plays fast enough and give our offense time, and but you never know what's going to happen. And the first game, like a whole totally sense of like calm came over me. Nonetheless, first 3 plays, 3 and out, our punt gets blocked, they score right away. I'm like, great. So this is how it's going to go. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
We only can go up from here. So, throughout that game, there was this like decision after decision that had to be made that like I was expecting maybe to happen over the course of the season, not in the first game. We were down 2 scores, like 6 minutes left. Did we punt the ball? Did we not punt the ball? We punted the ball. Our defense got to stop. We got the ball back. We scored a touchdown. We are still down a score. We're down 7. And we've been practicing 2-minute drills, and we go down the field and we score, and we like are getting out of bounds, and we're getting the ball down, and we're getting set, and we're spiking the ball, and like it's happening. Like this is crazy. Like you can only imagine like a 2-minute drill like this, and the players were executing it beautifully. We score a touchdown. We decided to go for 2. We didn't make it, so we lost the game. But it was still an amazing game. Like we did so much. Like a lot of our plays that we'd been practicing that I had like installed or critique, like changed a little bit, and they were working, and the players were doing all the things that we had talked about, and coaching points and protecting the ball and getting out of bounds when they need to. And our new cadence was working. Like it was all working. And again, like I said, we lost the game, but I was so proud of everybody. And it was like a high. I'm like, how are you supposed to go to sleep after a game? Even though we lost, like how are we supposed to go to sleep after that? I still am trying to figure out how to go to sleep after games. I usually rewatch the game at like 4 a.m. But the other really fun and proud moment was we went to DC last year, and this is a very storied franchise, same as us. They've been around, I think, same length, 1 year less than us, so like 26, 27 years, and we've been around 28 years, or 26, 27. But we were going there. We don't often get to play teams on the other side of the other conference. And this is a big game for us. Like this is East versus West. West does not get enough credit, in my opinion. There's some East Coast bias even in women's football. And we had to go there, and we started off really good. And it was a dogfight. Like we were grinding, but we did have the lead. And we're trying to run a 4-minute drill, which just means we're trying to run out the clock. And we almost did. There was one penalty that gave them the ball, and then our defense held. And so we came away with the victory. And like as soon as that whistle blew, I don't know why, but they did an ice bath on me, my players. I mean, it was a great win, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like it was our first win. And someone decided to give me an ice bath. And if you've never gotten an ice bath, that is such a rewarding, like, how many people get ice baths in their life for winning games? Like, not that many people. Like, one, you have to win the game.
Yeah.
Two, you have to have players that like even think to give you an ice bath, and they did. Actually, I had 2 last year, and never expecting them. They're not.
So you're saying it's going pretty well.
So that was great. Yeah, it was. And we had a really good season. Like, people did not expect a lot out of us last year. We had 25 new rookies. We had retired a good chunk of veterans. Our defense was almost completely new, and we had a new defensive coordinator nonetheless. So, we got into the semifinals. We played St. Louis Slam, hard, and we ended up losing to them when they won the championships. Like, we had a really good season. But like I said, we had a lot of rookies. So all throughout the year, like, we got to see these rookies go from athletes to football players. And that's the rewarding part.
Nice.
Like, that's, we want to win, but what do you remember? Like, you remember all the practices, you remember all the fun stuff you did outside of practice, dealing with the challenges that you face. So anyways, it was it was hard to even say those 2 moments. Like, there were just so many moments I could think of from last season of, positive, fun, enjoyment, proud moments.
That's what it's about as a coach, right? And that first game you're talking about where you go 3 and out, punts blocked, and like, that's coaching, right? Yeah. Like, coaching is not when you're winning all the time. Coaching is like making those decisions on the fly, switched on. There's a reason it's hard to go to sleep after a game, because you're up, your adrenaline's going. Do you have a couple themes have come out of some of these pods?
Yeah.
My friend Nick was telling me, Nick Patty, his wife makes him go. His wife lets him, or it makes him, goes to a pizza place, and he sits there by himself and eats 2 slices and then goes home. Do you have anything like that, like a decompression ritual that you do as a coach?
Yeah, it depends. I do like to rewatch the game. If which we have a really good broadcast crew, so usually it's posted right away and we can rewatch it. If not, I need to talk about it with somebody, whoever that may be. Like, if it's my coaches, if we're all at the event, if it's a few players, I just need to talk about it. I need to talk about the different situations. I need to discuss. And then after that, after a day, I usually can like move on to the next thing. But I do like the idea of just like eating some pizza. I could deal with that after every game. To be fair, our sponsor is Pizza Luce. So we do go to pizza place, and the pizza does do wonders. So shout out Pizza Luce.
Best pizza in Minnesota, hands down. My kids still are like, Dad, can we go to Minnesota, eat Pizza Luce, please?
This is actually just going to turn into a Pizza Luce commercial.
Brought to you by Pizza Luce. Get the TC Bear, the meat lovers pizza.
Yeah, exactly.
That's sad. I know that. That is so sad. Cojo, I feel like we're gonna need a part 2 at some point.
Sure.
Like, I would love to. You're at your preseason break. Maybe we reconnect and do another recording like after the season. See how it went. How year 2 was. Because honestly, I could talk to you all night, but you're on vacation. My partner is looking at me through the window, whatever. But to close out this first part 1, right, of what we're doing. There's a friend of mine named Lance who does a thing called the Great American Rugby Story, and I'm going to steal a little play out of his playbook. If you were to, express some gratitude or show some love to anybody in your support network, who would that be? Who would you want to, show gratitude for, or express gratitude for, as we close out the show?
I mean, there's a couple main ones. Kaya, my partner, we already talked about, like, both. I mean, she's my partner in training, in life, and in support. Like, we're always there, always supporting. Another massive one is my whole family, but especially my mom. Like, she comes to most events still, even though I'm way past the age that parents are typically going to events, but still supporting, keeping me grounded. My dad and my mom do a great job of that. And just still offering that ear if I need to discuss something, or going through something challenging, or I want to talk about a success. Like, either way, she's happy to hear. And so is my dad. Talk to both of them a lot. And then beyond that, it's like, I just want to say literally all of my friends that are around me, because football, being the head football coach for the Minnesota Vixen and also playing footy, takes most of my time. So I do see a lot of friends through those avenues, but being at practice isn't enough. Like, you do need to see friends outside of it. So having friends that understand my schedule and are willing to schedule around that means a lot. And also that if they don't see me for 3 months, they know I'm coming on the other side, and I want to see them or hang out, or they come to the games to support me, which is huge. To go to a game to support a coach is a selfless act. It is much easier to go if someone is on the field playing, to go to support a coach, or go to support a player who is injured, or maybe on the bench. Like, those are selfless acts. And that's something that I have such a good group of friends that do and have, even when I was injured. And also my family. Like, my parents would drive to games in college, even when I had ACL injury and was out for the season. Like, they would still be there. So those people in your life, you need them. And I always hope to do the same for them in their lives.
That was incredible. The way you put the selfless act, that was awesome. I loved it. Like, seriously, thank you.
Done.
Thank you for being on, part one of your pod. I would love to catch up and see how the season goes, but thank you for coming on and taking the risk, and challenging me, interviewing a friend, a fellow footy teammate, a coach I respect. That's pretty cool for me to get to do that. So thank you for taking that risk, and tell Kaya thank you for letting you come on while you're at her parents' house with the sweet art on the wall. Thanks for tuning in today. If you liked what you listened to, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a review. We appreciate any followers and any input. This is the Coach to Coach podcast with Sean Lendersmith.